Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who is tuning in. It is a great pleasure for me to be here together with Gustavo Montezano, who is the president of the Brazilian Development Bank, BNDES, and coming rushing from the Senate, Mr. Remy Rioux, who is the CEO of Agence Française de Développement, which is a French development bank. Now, it is interesting times. Here we are online, but nevertheless it has enabled us to get people from so many different uh, countries involved and at this very senior level. So let me start by asking you a question, if I may, Gustavo. BNDES, which is the largest national development bank in Latin America, and synonymous with infrastructure development. You've done such an amazing job in that field. Could you tell us a little bit about BNDES's efforts to align financing with low carbon and climate resilient transition in Brazil?
Sure. First, Linger, thanks for the invitation to be here. Our pleasure, myself and BNDS, to be participating in such a noble event here. And I hope it's useful and the debate is fruitful for all of us. Regarding the decarbonization of Brazilian economy, we see BNDS participation as a kind of, I would say, collectively actions. There's no silver bullet for that. The first thing we did last year in order to, I would say, be more focused on the non-financial metrics or SDGs or impact, whatever you call that, is to set our corporate goals by non-financial metrics. So we have a 3-year plan for BNDS, which is 2020, 21, and 22, where our first layer of corporate goals, they are 100% non-financial, including environmental, social, and I would say again, impact results at the last mile. Another movement we're providing this year, and don't take me wrong, but we are finishing our ESG department. But why we're finishing the department? Because the institution should be a ESG institution. So we are, the joke I'm using internally is that we are unboxing our ESG friends that are just set in a box in the department. And actually we're picking up those concepts and strategy and setting up across the whole bank, right? So our goal here and our strategy to get to the low carbon and other non-financial metrics is to change the strategy and culture of the bank. So everyone, especially people on the business side, that they can pick up opportunities in their last mile in their respective industries, right? And giving just some, I would say, recent examples from the past, how the bank has been positioned itself as a low carbon bank for decades. We were recently recorded by Bloomberg as the largest lender for clean energy globally. Naturally, Brazil has a large base of clean energy, and we, as a Brazilian development bank, we are the largest clean energy finance lender globally. We are also awarded last year to be one of the Brazilians representative of the Green Climate Fund, and we have a good pipeline to distribute the funds. We are also the manager of the Brazilian Climate Fund. It's a federal fund where BNDES is the main manager of this fund. And we were probably the first Brazilian bank that set up, again, the sustainable unit that's now being transformed in the bank's core strategy overall. So Inger, I would summarize our agenda here in the low carbon as, again, not a single silver bullet, but several measures across the bank. And again, being in Brazil, where we have a good matrix of low carbon energy generation, and again, all the green assets that we have there, I think we're very well positioned to play this field.
This is really absolutely fascinating, and hearing you speak, and you say that you set 100% non-financial
Go
metrics,
metrics, yes.
which is incredible. And you are unboxing your ESG department. I love
Yes.
it. So it would be interesting, I think, from some of our listeners and participants to understand, because it is a culture shift. Nevertheless, you could say that a huge stock of your investments have in fact been in renewable energy and so on, but sort of making that shift. If I may, could you speak a little bit about what those changes then, when you were sort of re-envisaging the metrics and the goals of BNDS, how have you taken that journey with your very, very competent staff? You're very well known.
Yes.
So it would be interesting for us to have an understanding of the bank's transformation.
Okay, sure. Thanks for the question. I love to answer this question. And when we set up this again, the non-financial metrics on the first layers, on the first layer of our goals, for example, people in Brazil that to have water and sanitation installed in their homes, broadband access, schools with computers, lights, proper lights in the streets, all the true metrics that people see on their day on day by day lifetime, right? And what's the goal behind that? Naturally, on the second layer of those metrics, we have the financial metrics. We have like revenues, loans, all the traditional metrics. But when I joined the bank last year, I thought that we were still being driven as a private financial institution where we have targets for disbursement, profit, losses, and we as a public federal development bank, we should think in the other way around. So first, let's think on the impact and how we change people's life, and then how we will be financially sustainable. It was very well received by the bank. People were willing to make this change. And it was a very first, I would say, imperative step on this direction. And the goal behind that is to take the mindsets of our, as you mentioned, very well skilled technicians and get out of the office and get out of the financial numbers and go to the real life. I mean, try to think on the real life. So the message behind the change, behind the goals itself, is to put all the bank to think on the last mile. And so far, we are very happy with this, I would say, aggressive or risk change. It's something, I would say, very innovative. But again, the bank will still be financial sustainable. But once with you think on the last mile and the impact, you are not there to compete. You are there to collaborate. So if there is a foreign bank, a private institution, some local government willing to help, you collaborate with everyone. Because at the end of the day, what matters is the impact. And that brings more business to BNDS. And at the end of the day, it improves our profitability as well. So we did this change last year. Naturally, there will be a lot of evolvements to be implemented for next year. But I think that the main one that we're going to promote next year is just what I said. There will be no ESG department being responsible for the ESG. All the bank, especially the frontline teams, will be responsible, engaged in ESG goals, and they will be rewarded and penalized for that as well.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. And I think what you are journeying is very much what many business leaders are journeying in that business. And there we have Mr. Remy Rioux. Welcome. But anyway, let me just conclude with the president of BNDS, that many business leaders are journeying that what motivates employees is also the social outcomes. And that's what you as a development bank can very much charge into the energy and the commitment of your staff. Just one more question before I turn to Remy. Um, BNDS, you source quite a lot of your capital through green bond issuance, as I understand it. And it would be interesting to have an understanding of your development bank investor relationship in that context, and whether investors are beginning to ask even, so how's the alignment around Paris and how does that all work? Or is it still too early days to focus on that?
Sure. We did the first green bond issuance. It was 2007 or 18. I can be wrong, but it was 2017. And the outcome conclusion of this USD green bond issuance is that we didn't have some price sensitive on the issuance. At the end of the day, the price was basically the same that you would get with traditional issuance, but we had a better base of bondholders than we would have if compared to a traditional issuance. Since that, the bank has been waiting and seeing the market for new issuance, but we are now debating for a local issuance in BRL in Brazil, where local bankers they indicate to us that we are going to have some benefit of green bonds status. And as I said, in our loan portfolio, BNDS loan portfolio today is roughly 80 billion dollars or so, around numbers. And we have a lot of underlying assets that can be registered as a green bond eligible. So we're likely, and it's not something decided yet, but we're likely soon testing the Brazilian local market for local green bonds. And the expectations are good. So it'll be something innovative and will likely open a new market for us in Brazil.
Well, you've been a leader on issuing of green bonds way early on, and I'm now going to switch to another leader in another continent, Remy Rioux, who is the tireless leader of the AFD, who has really moved the AFD to and declared very ambitious goals for the AFD as well, like we just heard on the Brazilian side. You are leading the most ambitious development bank, one of the most ambitious development banks, and you're also chairing the International Development Finance Club, the IDFC. And it would be interesting for us to understand here in UNEP-FI Forum how this group of development banks working together on climate action can work together. And if you could tell us a little bit, you have an upcoming summit that you're planning, as we understand it, during the Paris Peace Forum. It would be very interesting for our listeners and participants to have an understanding of your vision for your bank, but also for this club. Over to you and warm welcome. Sorry that you had to rush from the Senate. We understand that you were in an urgent session, but you are warmly welcome.
No, I'm extremely sorry, Inger and Gustavo, to arrive so late. But we are democratic institutions as public development banks, so we are being auditioned, and we have to be accountable, and not only before UNEP-FI, but also before the parliament. And so we had a long discussion with senators and
I think we lost Mr. Ryu. So let us see what might happen here. It seems, Gustavo, you and I, we are the ones who have a more stable connection. Can we ask that our friends in UNEP-FI behind the scenes kindly reach out to Mr. Ryu's office and have him log out and log back in. And meanwhile, you and I have the opportunity to talk. Now, one of the things that
So, Inger, I think I can answer the first part of your
please,
question to Remis, and since you're also a member of IDFC.
exactly, yeah.
Firstly, I really appreciate Remi's job on the chair position of the IDFC, and it's a very useful institution for development banks, right? We have a very common opportunities, very common threats, very common feelings, and this global table that IDFC is able to provide to all of us is very democratic, as he said, and useful for us for debate. And I think the moment for development banks is very, very special because, as you were just saying before, The big challenge of any manager today globally is to motivate the employers by setting social and environmental goals and how you change the world. And when you look at development banks, we're here to change the world. That's our job. We're here to improve the climate. We're here to reduce the social gaps. So it's a privilege to be at this moment of the world where a social and environmental capital gets close to financial capital, and we have this as a mission, and being both a financial animal and also a social animal playing from the government side. So it's a very special moment for development banks globally, and we do see myself, Remy, KfW, Moroccan Bank, and all the members of the table, that there is a big potential for development banks to regain some position that we had a few decades ago. So, firstly, I really want to thank Remy for his chair and how he conducts the IDFC, and it's a very useful forum for us. And I would say that the world can expect a lot from this group. But from the second part from the meeting, I prefer that he says that he's
I'm back.
organizing all that.
I'm back. Sorry.
He
You're
cares.
back.
It's
And
it's a
it's
nightmare.
wonderful to have you back. What it shows is there's true solidarity within the club, because Gustavo just stepped right in and carried the answer forward. But we'll hand it back over to you, Remy. Thank you.
No, I was listening to Gustavo, and of course he's exemplary of what we are building in a country so important as Brazil, with all the challenges ahead for all of us. So yes, colleagues, CEOs from the IDFC, the 26 of us, they gave me. Well, we built something mostly on climate for now 9 years. You know, we have this mapping every year. We will publish the new one by mid-November, and you will see a very nice surprise on the climate flows coming from the club, including China. We know what the commitment made by President Xi a few days ago, and it has very concrete consequences in investments. And you remember we pledged for $1 trillion at the last Climate Action Summit, September 2019. Which means 150 billion a year. We will be over that mark for the first year to demonstrate the commitment of each and every institution member of the IDFC. We will also publish a very interesting report with Yannick Glemarek from the Green Climate Fund, trying to illustrate by many examples and the common strategic vision, what Gustavo was mentioning, the connection between concessional finance, international funds, and public banks, including national development banks, in order to reach deep in our constituency and to pass very deeply the message of and the promise of 2015. And so the partnership we've built with the GCF, which is the only international fund that where these institutions have direct access, actually, is very, very promising. And you know, we are even going further within the club by reflecting on what Paris alignment concretely means for financial institutions, for public banks. And we have created an IDFC climate facility. We have a team, we have a facility to strengthen the capacities of our members and help disseminate the best methodologies for good investment. So this is the basis we're starting from, IDFC. Of course, knowing and liaising with all, like you, Inger, multilateral institutions, because you are the message, you are the guides, and we are the connectors somehow between global and the local on the public side. And so colleagues, they asked me about a year ago to push the ambition and to not only gather the 26 of us, but gather them all. And we discovered over time, we will publish fascinating databases by the summit done with the University of Peking of the 455 public development banks in the world existing, which means 10% of global investment. We are even using artificial intelligence to show the SDG signature of each public bank to start the discussion. And so we will have this Financing Common Summit to yes, more clearly identify the investment thesis and the role of these institutions. Hopefully, President Macron, many leaders will be around because we are doing it in partnership with the Paris Peace Forum. So hopefully receiving a message of trust and an encouragement to do more and to align with international priorities and connect with national trajectories. And in many side events, you will see that the idea is really not to have a pro domo manifestation. I mean, the idea is really to isolate, define more clearly what public bank is about, and connect and mobilize and liaise with all other actors. And well, Gustavo was a private banker previously, and I'm talking to UNEP-FI. And so, of course, the connection between public and private finance, public and private investments in various schemes is we know we have and we can do way more. And so we will beginning by November to this dialogue, in-depth dialogue, and hopefully next year, in the coming years, do things that we're not able to do right now, change our business model, receive the best incentives, and the crisis, I think, is only an accelerator for this movement.
Well, this is very, very exciting. And just to listeners who may not be aware, we're speaking to public development banks who normally have a mission and a mandate to invest in the areas where normal investors may not go. Water supply and sanitation, health outcomes, children in rural schools, the kind of things where a normal investor might not go, but to ensure that, and much of what we've seen in public development banks has often been infrastructure. And we heard earlier from Gustavo how you were very early out in 2007 issuing green bonds, etc., and how a substantial part of your portfolio, in fact, deals with, and now you have got 100% corporate goals on non-financial metrics in terms of being ESG infused throughout the entire portfolio, which leads me to a point here from UNEP-FI, if I may, because yesterday the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance, which you know is hosted by UNEP-FI and PRI, released target setting protocol, a target setting protocol for which members will use to achieve the emissions reductions between 16 and 29% by 2025. That's the members of the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance hold about 5 trillion in assets. So it's quite an ambitious goal. These are, of course, private banks, but it's quite an ambitious goal that we are very proud of, because sort of setting goalposts by 2050 is an easy point. It's setting the intermediary point so that you can measure yourself against them. That really is a tough part. So given that AFD and BNDs, you both operate within a financing chain that stretch from capital markets to projects, often through commercial bank intermediaries, would you be looking at this kind of engagement with your intermediary on the private sector? Because how would you engage with that? We heard from Gustavo about sourcing of capital through green bond issue, but maybe Remy, back to this earlier question, could you see yourself building on your 2019 commitment to fully align AFD operations with Paris, could you see a day when you start to work with intermediaries or companies who themselves are striving to get aligned? And how would that get sort of squared off? Over to you. And we have only 2 minutes and 50 seconds left.
Okay, so I'll be short, but that's of course the key question, and the question is when will we be able to pass from the alignment of what we finance? I mean, the pot of projects we put in front of our climate, green, sustainable bonds, to an approach on alignment of the partner we finance. I mean, the institution itself. And that's probably where what we are doing. I mean, in public and private banks, we have to discuss and share and try to design the best framework and methodologies to demonstrate that all that we are doing is aligned. And we have an experience at Agence Française de Développement, at AFD, now for more than 6 years. We have internally what we call a sustainable development opinion, independent opinion, which is distinct from operations, and that is grading each and every project we accompany. And so this is at a time what we want to put in front of our issuance on the market to be financed fully by not normal bonds, but sustainable bonds. And this methodology, of course, we are sharing it with colleagues, and we are 22% of our annual commitments goes through financial intermediaries. Can be public banks, but also a lot of private banks we are working with through guarantees, through credit lines, technical assistance. So we know how these institutions are transforming themselves and when they will be able to fully support the international agenda. So that's the transformation of institutions. And just one very last point is we also need public policies. We also need long-term trajectories, precise, transformed into investment plans to orient all financial actors in a good direction. And this is something we are lacking. It's in the Paris Agreement. We have NDCs, but we need long-term trajectories, and we need to have a vision, a say on are the countries going in the right direction or not. And considering this assessment, how the financial sector should react to finance the economy and the society.
I see that the tech gods behind the scenes gave us another 4 minutes, so so there we are. So that's a very good thing. Maybe I could ask you, Remy. So would you look then at the AFD safeguards to augment them in line with Paris? How would you approach that alignment as you're beginning that conversation? Or do you see it more as this is our overarching mission and therefore everything has to pass through that filter of a sustainable climate bank, just to have an understanding for our listeners?
Well, I mean, we are an international bank, so somehow the task for AFD is easier than for national development banks, because in the end, it's not so difficult for AFD not to finance something or to choose the project. So I'm very modest on what AFD is achieving. What we try to say is it's not only an issue of safeguards, I would say. It's not. I do not like very much the word "do not harm." I mean, our purpose is not. Of course, we don't want to do harm, but the question is how could we provide a positive, an offensive contribution beyond usual safeguards. And that's where the methodology I just described in a nutshell is interesting, because it pushes the ambition of the teams, of the counterparts, of the partners to unlock the best possible impact for climate and SDGs. And it's quite simple. It's a small team internally, but I think that in the end, it will be the way we will verify that we are aligned, and very interested, of course, in what UNEP-FI, especially the Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance, is also on its side trying to invent. Also, the principle for responsible banking are very interesting for all of us, the whole community, public and private, and ready to cooperate.
Well, look, within amongst the signatures for Principles for Responsible Banking, we have 39 banks who have made the Paris Alignment Commitment. They call it the collective commitment to climate action. And that group includes BNP Paribas, Crédit Agricole, BBVA, Santander, and a number of developing country banks, Kenya Commercial Bank, CIMB of Malaysia. And from our side, as we wind down this conversation, we would be really interested in discussing with leading investors in the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance, Allianz, Swiss Re, Swedish pension funds, and the PRB signatures, the Principles for Responsible Banking signatures, to come together with a leading group of development banks, such as yourselves, to establish that financing chain from capital markets through projects on the ground that is fully Paris aligned and net zero objective. And that maybe will be for another conversation, but I will give 20 seconds to Gustavo and 10 seconds to Remy, and then I will thank you both. Gustavo, my deep thanks to you. Over to you for any final words that you wish to say. You are muted. Well, I'm very sorry, because I know the clock will tick out. So it's like Hollywood and the Oscars here. Let me then do this. Remy, any final word you wish to say?
No, thanks to you. And I will talk also on behalf of Gustavo, I'm sure. I will.
Thank you.
No, just one very simple word to invite you. I know you know it, Inger and Gustavo, in Paris, hopefully
We'll be there.
not physically or virtually, for the
Thank
financing
you very, very
commitment
much.
to pursue this
We will
dialogue.
be there. To you both, a huge thanks, and have a great day. Thank you. And we are now out of the session, and I thank you very, very much for this very interesting discussion. I'm sorry that Gustavo's microphone in the end didn't work, but it was great. And thank you very, very much to both of you. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.